this is gonna sound like hate, and I don't. They're number one in my power rankings. Not hating, hell of a team. Damn, it seems like every week the Eagles are beatable. Every week. They just like kind of get by, by the skin of your teeth. If I was an Eagles fan, I'd feel like they're probably leaving something on the table. But every week it's the same thing. Like, ooh, they don't look good, or they can't move the ball, or Hurts don't expect. At the end of the day, find a way to win. Yesterday, I didn't think the Eagles looked good at all.
I think there's something to be said for that. I don't know what, but you're right. You're right. They don't look dominant. I mean, Jalen, I didn't know what was happening with Jalen yesterday. Yeah, I don't know. I'm not overly impressed with the Eagles, but they're the only one-loss team in the league. So,
yeah.
Is Dak Prescott like the quarterback that just is the most confusing thing that there ever was? Like yesterday, he was so good, except for that he, in a crucial moment, threw a ball to like a third tight end at the half-foot line, as opposed to like someone else who's more reliable. Then he steps out of bounds at the 1 yard line, trying to get in for a 2-point conversion, which would have set up a field goal later. Then he misses. He throws to the wrong receiver on 4th down, like a bad throw to a guy who's like fully covered. Yeah, it just like it feels like you want to bash him, and then you look at his stats and you're like, man, the stats don't match hardly anything that I saw.
I don't have it in front of me. I can look it up. Didn't he have over 300 yards passing yesterday?
I don't know. I can't stop looking at RG3's glasses.
Oh, no.
RG3, they look like grandma's glasses. They are awful. His face is way too narrow for those giant ass clear Mary J. Blige glasses.
Dak Prescott,
come on, Robert.
Dak Prescott yesterday was 29 of 44, 374, 3 touchdowns, no picks.
Yeah, so that's the thing with he's good, and when it came down to it, he had the opportunity to win the game. He had the opportunity to do what CJ Stroud did. Now, that's the Bucs defense versus the Eagles defense. But CJ found a way to get it done, and Dakota couldn't.
I mean, you got down to the 6, to the 6 yard line with 30 seconds to go.
Yeah.
And you ended up with the last play being on like
the 30, 35. Yeah.
Come on, man.
It's awful. Absolutely awful.
Yeah, totally bizarre. I don't know what to make of him. It's really difficult to process what he does. You get to the end of the game, you're like, there was so much good, and then just when it's on the line and he needs to do something, he makes like really strange, silly mistakes, and it's like all the time. It's always like that.
You're listening to Kilo and KC on KIFM West Sacramento, 98.5 FM, KRX QHD2 Sacramento, ESPN 1320, always live on the free Odyssey app, live on 1320 TV, which consists of Twitch, YouTube, Facebook, and the app formerly known as Twitter. If you're on YouTube, hit the thumbs up, hit the subscribe buttons as well, and know that programming begins on that channel at 10 a.m. with James Hammond, his partner Kyle Madsen on the Insiders, brought to you by Jiffy Lube. Hammer, let's get into some Kings discussions, as the Kings will play against the Houston Rockets again tonight. The hell happened on Saturday?
Oof. You know, I'm just going to point fingers like right at the starters. Like just didn't show up. That's it. Like at the end of the day, you know, your job is to go play basketball on a Saturday night in Houston, and you look like you were in New Orleans. So, like, I don't know what the deal was, but I thought Chris Duarte and JaVale McGee and Malik Monk came in and at least got the Kings back in the game. But the second you put the starters back on the floor, it was a hot mess, and the whole game just like ground to a halt. And I don't know what the deal is with the pace, but in the first 3 games of the season, they're at like 104. In the last 2 games, they're at 96. Like, it can't be one player who makes all the difference in your franchise and you can't live without him. And if that is like the rule, then this isn't the offense that you can build. Like, you have to build some other offense because you can't just have everything stop. And that's against like an aging Golden State Warriors team playing the third game in 4 nights, and you didn't push the tempo, and then it's against a young, team. I don't even know how you slow down the Houston Rockets, but it's everybody. And I'm not pointing fingers at Davion. He's on the court for sure, but this is about accountability. It's about demanding that if he's not pushing the tempo, you're yelling at him to push the tempo. And if he's still not pushing the tempo, then it's on Mike Brown to find someone else who will. And, like how many times has Domantas Sabonis brought the ball up this year? It's like all the time. Like, where's the speed? Where's the quickness? What are we doing here? And so I don't get it, especially when their defensive rating keeps coming down, which means they're getting stops, which means they're getting rebounds, which means they're getting the ball and have an opportunity to push the ball and not take the ball out of the basket and set up their offense early. It's not fun to watch. That's for sure. And then, like, I don't know what the cure is, but if I'm Mike Brown, I might say, hey, look, you guys are going to figure it out against Houston, and you might figure it out against Portland. And if you still haven't figured it out, I may even you might need to figure it out against OKC without De'Aaron Fox, because if not, this team can't move forward if they lose everything, when their entire identity when one player is out of action.
Do you think that there's been, I've said this a number of different ways, it's just a new way of saying it, but do you think there's been too much emphasis on the defensive end? And instead of, like, I feel like even at the end of that game, where the offense, to me, now they got carved up a little bit in that fourth quarter for sure, but to me, the offense was the problem. And Mike comes out after the game and was like, yeah, well, we stopped playing defense when we couldn't make shots. Like, no, you didn't make shots. Like, your offense was looking pathetic. Like, that's the problem. I think there's too much emphasis on the defensive end and just kind of taking the offensive end for granted. Like you mentioned just a second ago, you're like, who's telling Davion to push the ball up the court? Probably nobody, because they're so worried about what you got to do on the defensive end. Defense is important. So is offense. Do you think they're focusing too much on the defensive end?
Yeah, I'm not sure. I know that their defensive rating is all the way down to number 14 in the league, but their offensive rating is up to number 14. And that's just, your net rating is a negative 0.9. Right now, you're a 500 team or slightly below. That's what the stats say, and that's what your record shows. So I don't really care about the offensive rating or the defensive rating. I only care about net rating and W's. That should be like the modus operandi of this team. Like, go out there and get wins. And however you have to do it, whether that's going crazy and pushing the ball up and down the court, whether it's scoring 140 and giving up 130, it doesn't matter. Just go out there and win the way that you won last year. I feel like they tinkered a lot, and all of a sudden the offensive flow is weird. And I know, like, Deuce texted me earlier and said, hey, they're getting the second most wide open threes in the league this year, but they don't feel like the same wide open threes, and they feel like they're deeper. It feels like the other team is pushing them out further and further away from even the 3-point line. And so, yeah, they might be getting enough space, like the 4 foot of space or 5 foot of space, to make it look like an easy shot, but they're also taking 26, 28 footers. And so that's not the answer either. Like, this offense just looks weird and wonky. And, I think De'Aaron Fox hides a lot of that. But I also think that there are certain players on this team that have to step up, and they've got to do it now. You can't keep waiting for guys, while they're shooting. Keegan Murray shooting 25% from 3, or Kevin Huerter shooting 20% from 3. That's just, when you're the number 1 and number 2 3-point shooter on this team, and this offense is predicated on 3-point shots. You're the number 2 team in the league and 3-point shot attempts, and you're number 22 in percentage. Like, that's a problem. That just makes it look like the offense is broke, and that doesn't make a lot of sense.
I was just going to say real quick. I mean, it feels like this could be me reading too much into things, but, I'm big on speaking things into existence, vibes, putting stuff out there. It seemed like offense was like a bad word around there. Like, it's offense. Nothing's going to matter unless you play defense. Like, that's the whole talk being more physical, defensive end. Like we can take a step back on offense as long as we move up on defense.
Yeah, I think you're doing too much with that. I think you're embellishing that like a little bit, like maybe what I was doing with Adam Morrison earlier.
Poor Adam Morrison.
You're embellishing it a little bit because like when Monty made that remark, he said we could take a step back to like 2 or 3, not 15 or 14 or wherever Jesse said they were earlier. Not that.
I just don't think that should even be.
No, and that's fair. That's perfectly fair.
Mindset.
That's perfectly fair. I think they were also trying to manage expectations. James, curious, like about being, the highest rated. Like it was what was the stat last year? The highest rated offense in league history, or the most efficient offense in league history, or something like that.
James thought it was the greatest offense of all time.
Well, that's what we heard. Significantly better than what the Warriors did. That's what went out there on Twitter. That's ...
All I do is speak with ... That's it.
That's it.
Yeah. They had the highest rated offense in the history of the game.
Thank you.
And that was at like, oh man, I think they finished like 118. And right now they're like 110. Like there's just like something is fundamentally off. And again, losing De'Aaron Fox is a big deal. Like any team that loses their star level player, it's a big deal. But that's not what we saw on Saturday. Saturday was like you went into Golden State and you lost by 1 without De'Aaron Fox. Okay. But then you go into Houston and you don't show up. I mean, that's a problem. So I would like to say that, like De'Aaron Fox would have made all the difference in the world. It's like, all right, well, what was he supposed to do? Like drag the team behind him? Like what we've seen in the past with, well, even in that game, like again, Chris Duarte, I thought brought so much energy to the court in the first half. JaVale McGee was super active. Malik Monk played a really strong role. Like those were guys that like brought energy, but the difference between the starting unit and the second unit, just energy wise, was shocking. And I don't, like if you're not going to bring it, then you're going to lose. You're going to lose. It doesn't matter who you're playing, whether it's Houston again tonight or Portland on Wednesday. Like if you're going to come out there with like, I don't know, like a meh attitude, you're going to get thumped.
Yeah. And our girl Jill in the chat, she says it perfectly. Triano was pissed at the players for not running things correctly. Players have to play better. And that's always my thing. Like we talk about Mike Brown and the emphasis and all this other stuff. I get all that. At the end of the day, these guys, I know Mike Brown and Triano aren't telling them not to make shots. You know what I mean? They're not saying that. Like these guys have to execute at a high level and knock down their shots. They all know basketball. They all know that they've got to play better on the defensive end. They all know that they scored 89 points the other day. That's unacceptable. If it was me on the team, I wouldn't need Mike Brown or anybody to tell me we got to be better on the offensive end. I was just looking around. Hey, that's unacceptable. Just the same way I feel about defense. Like we gave up, this didn't happen on Saturday, but we gave up 55% from the field. I don't need a coach telling me we got to be better. That's unacceptable. So, the coaches can only do so much. They can only say so much. The players, they've got to execute, man. That's really what it comes down to a lot of the times. Every time.
I do get you, but I would also say that this offense wasn't broken at all, and they tinkered a lot. So while they've never like broken down what the small tweak that they did to the lineup, I mean to the offensive scheme, you can see it. It doesn't look the same. It doesn't feel the same. There's something that is missing here with this offense. And a lot of that was very specifically, like Mike Brown said, well, the way that we're coaching him to play the basic set this year, it's very similar to what we did last year, but we actually had this set in our playbook and we ran it about 3 plays a game. This year we're running it about 30 plays a game. And whatever that is, you can see that there's something different, that there is no fluidity. There is no, when guys are coming off the high DHO, the dribble handoff, there isn't the space created. Like, I don't care whether they're telling me that Keegan Murray is getting wide open looks on all of these or not. he's off balance. He's way closer to the action than he was last year. And I mean, that's at least what I see. And I will say, like, Kevin Huerter and Keegan and Sasha Vezenkov, they've missed plenty of wide open threes. But they've also, like, there's a lot of these threes that they were getting last year that just look totally different. They were able to get around the corner, be balanced, and shoot the shot like regular and like squared to the rim. And that's not what we're seeing this year. There's a lot of like unbalanced, hips not square, shoulders not squared to the rim, trying to square up in the middle of a shot and missing by, again, Keegan Murray airballed a three a couple of games ago and he almost airballed a couple more, and none of it looks natural. And I know there's no way he's not hitting his shots in practice like all the time. So to me, there's something fundamentally that they've done that's different this year that needs to be further examined before I start saying that it's only on the players.
Fundamentally, in terms of the structure of the offense?
Yeah.
I see. It feels like physicality was a word. It was like a buzzword of training camp in the offseason. And when Mike was using it, it was for the Kings to exhibit some physicality to their opponents. It feels like, Hammer, particularly looking at the last two games, that the game plan against the Kings is to institute some physicality against them. It looks like that's what Houston did yesterday. It looks like that's what Houston did on Saturday. And I wonder if the Kings struggle against teams being physical with them. It's what the Warriors did as well. It's not only what the Warriors did in their game so far this season, it's what they did in the 7-game series last year.
Yeah, I think that that's probably part of the issue. I also think that teams are using the Kings' attempted physicality against them. Like, they're letting them overplay them. They're getting them in foul trouble all the time. I mean, the Warriors, like whoever it is, they're living at the free throw line against the Kings. The Kings are in the penalty like almost every quarter. It's the strangest thing. Again, I like what Chris Duarte's done, his ability to like instigate and to bring physicality, but he also walks in the game and picks up a foul instantly. Within the first 30 seconds he's on the court, he almost every single game has a foul. You're like, man, just let the game come to you a little bit. And so I think teams are using the attempted physicality because there's a big difference between trying to play physical and actually playing physical. And I think the Kings are still trying to play physical and trying to understand how to play physical. And that's where their opponents are living, where they're getting them on the back cuts. They're walking them into bad situations where they draw easy fouls. And like the Kings need to make adjustments on how their physicality is being played out on the court.
Is that is that something that where does it start, essentially? Does that start with the big guys, like a guy like Sabonis, or does that start on the perimeter, in your opinion, being tougher with the ball, getting into your sets without, getting knocked off your path or setting solid screen? Like, where does that start? Something like that start in your mind?
It does this year kind of does feel a little bit like last year, except for the issues are slightly different. It does. Like the team started 0-4 last year, and you're waiting for that moment where everything just clicks and it all falls into place, because I don't think that they're that far off. It's just they feel like they're unbalanced, and I'm not sure how you totally fix that. But I can tell you, I remember talking to you guys at the beginning of last season, and we were talking about how this offense was like early in the season, they weren't hitting their shots. They were struggling like this, except for Kevin Huerter, who was like he couldn't miss at all the whole first month of the season. But the rest of the team, they weren't hitting the easy ones. And I told you guys, man, their offense is like rated number 10 in the league. And if they get anywhere near like what their standard baseline for a field goal percentage, 3-point percentage is, this is going to be like a top 5 offense, like super quick. And then boom, it clicked and there they were. Like you could see it. It was just like almost like this season where they're just missing 3-point shots. I mean, you can't be number 2 in the league in 3-point attempts and number 22 in 3-point percentage, and you're shooting like 32 something. That's not like that's a recipe for disaster. So, but if that jumps up to what they did last year, like a standard shooting percentage, and all of a sudden you're shooting 36, like this offense all of a sudden looks great again. And so maybe it does come down to just like hitting your shots and being in the moment. But yeah, it's all a mess.
Well, shout out James Ham. It's 3:22. No, you did good. You did good, James. And as a matter of fact, let me see if I can give James some air horns here because I lost. Shout out James. I had you going at JaVale McGee by now, and you didn't do it. You actually praised JaVale McGee, which really threw me for a loop, and I had to resist a lot of urge to say something right there. But I had you. Yep, I had you throwing some shade at JaVale McGee by 3:22, and you didn't do it. So great job, James. You're using good. Well, he took a couple of interesting. It's sad too when I watch JaVale now. He'll do something. Oh, James is going to let him have it for that one. he shot that 3. I was like, oh, James is going to bring that up on Monday. Then he had like that weird hook that he does that I'm not sure if he's made one yet this year.
No, I don't know if he had. No, he did. I think he made one against.
He had a running hook.
Yeah.
It was early or one of the first games. He had a running sky hook, and then he thought it was go time, and he tried a couple more of them, and he kept hitting them, and then you're like, oh no. I looked down and missed the 3. I did.
Oh, no wonder you didn't fire off an angry tweet.
No, I may have got a text from Kyle like, oh, the 3 ball. Yeah, like look, as long as he's playing within the flow and he's bringing energy and he's not doing crazy things, I'm totally fine with him. I am. It's the same with Chris Duarte. As long as he's playing like he did in the first half and not like he did in the second half, or like the game before where Mike Brown limited him to like less than 7 minutes and he lost his minutes to Colby Jones. Like, I'm okay with what Chris Duarte is doing. I know a lot of people keep calling for Chris Duarte to start, and he's just not there yet. The speed of the game isn't there for him. And I think, he hasn't played in, something well over 200 days coming into the season. Like, he needs to find his, like, the speed of the game again and make adjustments. That's why a lot of times he's just running out there and fouling people like right away. He isn't adjusted to the speed of the game. So I think that there's like room for growth with all these guys. But yeah, I think like JaVale wasn't, if I were taking like a list of things that were wrong with the game the other night, JaVale is like way, way down the list, way down the list.
James gonna get that JaVale McGee jersey.
Ooh. Come on, Hammer. Come on, James. But to your point, it was that second unit that was really solid, which brings up a question that has popped up here in the chat. KC has brought it here to the show. As Mike has been steadfast on keeping Malik in that 6-man role, so to speak, in that off the bench role, does he need to revisit that?
No, like I don't think so. Like Malik Monk just has a look and feel of a 6-man, and that's the best position for him. Because the problem is that if you get him comfortable and all of a sudden he starts doing well as a starting shooting guard, whether you're winning or losing with Fox out of the game, that once Fox comes back, we end up having this same issue that we did before, where you got 2 guys that want to handle the ball in the starting lineup, and that's not even including Domantas Sabonis. Like, you need Malik as your change of pace guy, and I would also point out that, like, Malik only averages, like, 23, 24 minutes a game. Like, you can give him more of an opportunity. He could play 30, he could play 32, and you can make adjustments from there. But for right now, like, this is how your team should be balanced. You just need to find a way for either Davion to play better and just fit in better, or for Colby Jones to get more minutes at the point alongside him. Like, you have to find something else that works. But for right now, like, I don't, pulling the trigger on something like that is a big move, and then it has lasting repercussions throughout the season, has lasting repercussions into the off season when he's a free agent. So I like Malik where he is, and when I watch the Utah Jazz and I see Jordan Clarkson playing, that team would be so much better if Jordan Clarkson was their sixth man. But then they have Colin Sexton, and that doesn't help either because he's the sixth man too. And so you actually need somebody who can be a starter. And that's, again, it's not a slight. Like most great teams never start their best five players. They don't. They start, like number 1, number 2, number 4, number 6, number 7 sometimes if you're really good. And then you have two guys coming off the bench that are really good and are top tier. So, yeah, I mean, like, look at the end of the day, I don't think Mike's doing anything wrong by keeping Malik on the bench.
James, I agree with you 100%. But when we come back, I want to present something else and see if you change your mind at all.
Look at this guy. He had me worried there for a second. I was like, oh, boy.
Come on, man. Come on,
Look at my man. Come on now. Radio guy, Kenny Caraway right there. We'll come back. KC will pay off that tease. Plus, I need everyone's honest assessment on what they felt about the in-season tournament, particularly the courts, because we were watching them on social media. Like, oh, this is fun. This is fun. Then I got home and put it on my TV. I was like, oh, my God. What the hell is going on here? It was quite an adventure over a span of a few hours there on that Friday. So we'll talk about that. Dealing with Casey, along with the insider, James Ham, return here on Sacramento Sports Leader, ESPN 1320.
Guess who's asking questions to the commissioner?
Ooh.
Bonte Hill.
Oh.
Press conference for the announcement of All-Star 2025.
Probably talking
about
Bonte.
Hey,
Adam, what would you give up for DeMonte?
Bonte with Lake Up and Gruber, the other owner, Mayor London Breed, and that guy who was on the Kings preseason game for 45 of the 48 minutes, the president or whatever of the Warriors.
Oh, Rick Welks?
Yeah. I don't think this is Rick Welks. It's
oh, no, I think he retired, didn't he?
Yeah, this is the guy who was on that telecast during the preseason game forever and was talking about the grass that they're growing across the street from Chase Center. And it's anyway, he's on the panel.
I'm going to answer a question. Do you think the Kings are interested in Jeremy Grant? I don't know. He's paid way too much. Way too much.
Expensive.
Yeah. I mean, maybe, but, we're talking about a 29, 30-year-old guy who just signed a massive contract that seems way, way too high. And then Robert Williams, knee surgery. Again, it's not good.
Get well soon, Robert Williams. Get well soon. Odd angle. Maybe he's just sitting down, but J.A. feels like Jay's taking this video of Kings pregame laying on the floor.
Jason Anderson?
He's not. I guess he's probably just sitting on the chairs, but it seems like he's on the floor.
Oh, just like in pregame.
Yeah.
Well, the game hasn't started, so he's allowed on the court until 4:30.
No, what I mean is on the floor, like laying on the floor. That's what this looks like.
Does he know that it's recording?
Yeah,
there's certain things about Jason Anderson.
And everything. Now, my guess is he's probably sitting in the seats. Maybe the seats are really, really low, but I don't know. You guys tell me. It looks like he's lower than usual. Or
for the love that all there is holy. I like Jason Anderson was in the scrum the other day, and I'm like, dude, give me your phone. And he's like, okay. And I sat there and I cleaned the lens. Like, come on, man. Like every single one of your videos looks like a glam shot video. Like you went to the mall and did the fuzzy, warm, fuzzy look. Like, what's going on, man? Clean your lens. Oh, I need to do that? Yes, you need to do that.
Then he's sitting in his chair and he got the phone down.
I guess so.
I don't think Jason knows it's on.
He laid on the floor.
Yeah, I don't think he's laying on the floor, but that's dedication right there.
That angle is crazy.
Is it live right now or something?
No, he tweeted it out.
Yeah, he's posting videos.
Now I have to go look. I have to look because I know he hasn't cleaned his lens since last time I did it, which is just horrible.
Well, the picture looks good. Picture looks good. I don't think that's an issue.
It doesn't look like he's about to go door to door selling bracelets. Napoleon Dynamite girl doing glam shots.
Jay's on the floor getting a good video here. This one's even crazier. Oh yeah, gotta look like he's sitting crisscross applesauce on recording Harrison Barnes warm up. It's a very unique perspective, though. This is where Damian sits.
They're not courtside Kenny seats.
No, this is Damian seats right here. Ain't nobody in front of him. Jason Anderson, our guy, JA, he's got video of like the Kings pregame warming up. And I said it looks like he's laying on the floor. This angle looks like he's laying on his hip, filming.
I found a bunch of TikToks that show you how to take like dope selfies. We gotta figure out how to do that. What are you laughing at? Jerk. It had all these settings I've never used before. I was like, what the hell is he talking about? Just pop the camera up and try to take a picture.
Reese says that it should be portrait with natural light. Or no. What does he say? He said that's what it should be.
Reese also said, why you name dropping for game 6 after the Heat?
He was upset. Studio light. Yeah, he was upset. I said, why are you so upset? Not even a Heat fan.
He hates the Celtics just like everyone else.
Kind of mad James just laughed at me when I said that. This is a safe space, James.
A safe space. You're talking about TikTok videos so you can take a better selfie.
Selfie game.
I hate to be all Danny Glover, but I'm too old for this. Bleep.
Facts.
Yeah.
Facts.
That just cracked me up. Good stuff. Good stuff.
Not even TikToks. They might have been reels. I'm not sure.
It just seemed like a very like we're too old to do any of this moment. How you're describing it.
Put that on mine.
All right, here we go, James.
Woo!
All right, Sacramento Kings take on the Houston Rockets coming up. That's the 6 o'clock
5
start,
o'clock.
5 o'clock start.
We'll be watching that during 102.5.
That'd be our first time this year, right?
Yeah.
First time
Get your
this year.
popcorn ready.
We've watched a couple of games during meetings before, but never during our actual show. That's going to be an adjustment.
Yeah.
It's going to not crack the microphone. Yo, Domas Sabonis just threw it down.
What? Something happened the other day while we were on the air, like literally on the air, and it almost distracted me. Something happened.
Oh,
was it the baseball? I thought it was something else, but it might have been the baseball.
When Garcia got hit,
Yeah,
it might have been
and
that.
the bench is clear.
Yeah, it might have been that.
I said Travis Scott is
listen to back-to-back songs from whatever. We tried to send James to see Travis Scott. Didn't work out for any of us. We weren't able to do it. But you had a question for James?
Yeah, so James, we were talking about the idea of Malik Monk starting, and some people were calling for that. Myself, Damian, and James just laid out like, we're not really interested in that. Like, we like Malik coming off the bench. We think that's the best role for him, best role for this team. I'm in agreement with you, James. I'm just going to throw out a scenario. Let's just say the Kings look anemic in the first quarter again tonight, and De'Aaron Fox is ruled out for Wednesday's game. Are you starting to think about it a little bit? Because at some point, they can't just be 33-19 every first quarter, without De'Aaron Fox. They didn't look very good Wednesday in the first quarter without De'Aaron Fox. I'm just like you. I'm like, nah, Malik is good as a sixth man. But I got to admit, if these starts keep happening the way they are and De'Aaron Fox is ruled out again, I can't lie. I'm at least thinking about, more than I ever have before, thinking about Malik Monk in that starting lineup.
Well, in that situation, I just keep going to him earlier and earlier and earlier. Like, if he comes in at the 3-minute mark, so be it. But you need to establish something. You need to get Davion Mitchell an opportunity to get into the game. I thought, again, Davion was solid against Golden State. He just wasn't solid against Houston.
Mhm.
And either way, he didn't set the tempo like I would hope that he would. But again, if he can't set the tempo, then somebody else in that starting lineup has to. And that might be the problem. It's that, Herter can bring the ball up, but he's not a natural ball handler. He is a good playmaker, and he averages over 3 assists per game and stuff like that. But it's got to be either Sabonis or really Davion bringing the ball up. And if you're not getting the type of pace and tempo that you need, then maybe you do go away from it. But I still would believe that before Mike Brown went to Malik Monk, he might do something totally off script and go to Colby Jones and say, "Hey, look, man, I need you to run, 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 run. I don't want you to stop." And set a standard and set a tempo. That's kind of where I would think that he would go.
Do you destroy Davion if that happens?
No, because I mean, it's very possible that Davion's just better against second team guys. I like the matchup with Davion against Fred VanVleet. I thought that would be a good matchup. I thought that they would go at it. That's just not what we saw. So, I need a different level of whatever. Go out there and put on a show, and don't hold back. That's what I kind of feel like. There are times where Davion is trying to fit in, still trying to figure out who he is on the court, and we should be well past that. You had 82 games to figure that one out last year with a new coaching staff. You're not a new player on this team, and there are players who are already figuring it out. Again, Colby Jones is already figuring it out, how to play within this set. And he doesn't have to be perfect, but man, there are plays that he makes that you're just like, I can't believe he got to that spot on the floor to draw a charge or to be in the way. So yeah, I think that it's just about speed and tempo and pace, and this team has to move. There cannot be another game where you're all standing around just looking at Domas while he's holding the ball saying, please somebody move. And that's what I feel like we're seeing a lot lately.
Yeah, I just want Davion to be aggressive on the offensive end. There was, I pointed out earlier, there was 3 straight plays in that second quarter, which I love the second quarter from the Sacramento Kings, the way they played in that second quarter, getting fast, getting up and down the floor. But 3 straight plays where Davion was ultra aggressive, getting a shot for himself, drawing to the defense to get a 3 for Monk, drawing the defense to get a backdoor for Duarte. And I'm just like, I need that the majority of the time. Press the issue, turn up the intensity on the offensive end with how you're getting up and down the floor and forcing the issue and creating offense. That's what I want to see tonight from them, a lot more than what we saw on Saturday. Too much walking it up, too much when you got there on the other side of half court, just, slowing the game down. I think I don't know what his game entails, so to speak, as far as he's better at this or that, but it feels like he'd be even better pushing the ball up and getting into that up and down type of game. And I want to see that from him.
Yeah, I want to see it too, but sometimes it's just not the style of player. That's always been my issue with Davion. It's not that I think he's a bad player. I think he's a really, really solid player. I think he can be a starter in the league. It's just that this is a very specific type of offense. And if he can figure it out, then great. But it's kind of like the same way when he's playing off ball on the defensive side of the ball, he's not great there either. Like there's a specific type of game he likes to play. And, a lot of it's not like he's the only one that's had this problem. It's like very similar to a player like Tyreek Evans. Like when the ball isn't in their hands or when the ball isn't right in front of them with their defender, they have a little bit of struggle. And, I think he's done better at it, especially fighting through screens and like learning how to chase a guy like Steph Curry. But I've always told you guys, it's not for me. It's never been about whether he hits his shots or not. It's about whether he looks like he is one of the 10 guys on the court that are moving in one giant like flow. And a lot of times he's not. You can see it. He stands out. So again, it's not anything about him. It's just that he's a different style of player and you're trying to like, sand off the edges to fit a square peg through a round hole sometimes.
What do you think of Domas's game Saturday?
Wasn't good enough. Like,
was he passive? Is that what was going on, or was it the way they were defending him? Like I told KC earlier, mentioned on the show, I had to check the box score in the third quarter because I knew he was out there and I knew he was getting the ball. I knew everything was running through him. I knew he was rebounding, but I couldn't remember anything he had done offensively, and he hadn't really done a lot offensively up until that point.
Yeah, I'm not sure. I mean, again, Houston is physical. And Alperen Şengün is physical and he's ground based. Like those are the guys that he usually struggles against. He also does a bunch of like unorthodox moves trying to draw fouls and stuff. And I think you're always like slightly apprehensive against a guy like that because you're worried you're going to be out of the game because of foul trouble. But I thought he was good on the glass. Like overall, he just wasn't that impactful. I mean, you can't have with Fox out of the game and again, like 23 and a half shots per game are just sitting there for someone to take. And these guys are looking at each other like screaming, not it. Like they're not trying to go take those shots. And the same goes for Herter, same goes for Harrison Barnes. Like, man, you're missing like the biggest cog to your entire offense. Somebody has to step up. And it can't be everyone waiting for Keegan to do it. So yeah, I think Domas has to be one of those guys that says, okay, I gotta be better. And I don't think he had a particularly great game either. But again, it's hard for him to orchestrate an offense when no one is moving, when everyone is just standing there. And we've seen this before with this group, but like where is the screens, the off-ball screens that we're so used to with this team? Where's the flow of the offense that we're so used to? And the answer, it's not there. And you can see it as like with Sabonis's stats. Like guys aren't hitting shots, but I still don't believe that they're getting the same quality of shots they were last year. And this team is really bad from 2-point range. Last year, they were number 1, number 2 in the league in 2-point field goal percentage the entire year. And right now they're in the 20s, and that's just not going to cut it either.
So the other thing about all this, James, that we talked about, and I think this is actually the case, is all this is really unfair. 5 games in, they're playing without their best player. And yes, we don't want them to fall off a cliff if De'Aaron Fox isn't available. But it's still just 2 games, where they haven't looked the way that we wanted to on the offensive end. They could come out today and be like, you know what, we got to pick it up. Maybe they were sleepwalking and they say we got to pick it up. Let's pick up the pace in this game tonight. I mean, is it also as simple as that? It's still early in the season. They still do have guys like Duarte, like Kobe Jones, like JaVale, who are trying to get used to a new team and a new scheme. Like, how much of that plays into what we're seeing right now?
Yeah, I mean, I just think that they're getting off to a slow start. And, again, like the sky isn't falling. We're 5 games into the season and, and they're 2-3 against a pretty tough lineup. If they would have won on Saturday, we wouldn't be having any of these discussions. It would be like everything's fine. They're 3-2. They throttled a team that was not as good as them, and they'll do it again on Monday, and they'll probably win again on Wednesday, and then sets up this great matchup on Friday against OKC, who's playing really well and is super tough. But you're going into that game at 5-2, and you don't want to lose at home. But like that's where we thought we would be sitting, and maybe that's part of the expectations that we're starting to realize like is building with this team, and like they're going to have a tough time living up to the expectations because a lot of fans, a lot of media that's not national media thought that they would do really well this season. I think that they will do really well this season. But as of right now, there's a lot of expectations on this team, and they just have to be better than they have been.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Be better tonight. Start tonight. Because I think there'll be a smidge bit of panic if they lose to the Rockets.
Well, yeah.
I don't think it'll be the most relaxed reactions. I think it'll be pretty intense, and I think they're going to need, the fan base is going to need to see some guys play well tonight. I think Domas is one of those. It's really the observations on Keegan and Kevin Huerter are pretty interesting, that the shots may be wide open, but they look a lot different than they did last year. If that's the case, if it's the case for them, if they see that on film, they better find a way to make it look different. Because I'll ask you guys this: can the Kings survive on the backs of just Domas and De'Aaron? Can they get back to the playoffs if it's just Domas and De'Aaron?
I feel like it. Like they need things that made them special last year was Kevin Huerter and the way he played, and Keegan playing as a rookie, and Malik Monk coming off the bench and getting contributions from Trey Lyles every now and then too. So obviously those guys got to be the best players, but Kevin Huerter can't shoot 20% from the field. Keegan Murray can't shoot 25% from three and things of that nature. And I don't think they will by any means, but I'm saying like they need those guys to step it up a little bit as well, even with them being all star caliber players.
Yeah, it's really tough to envision this team going anywhere if it's just those two. If it's just those two who are putting up all of the numbers each and every night, because they just become predictable. And if you don't have guys hitting shots, then the court's going to start getting smaller and smaller and smaller, where they're just clogging the lane where Sabonis and Fox live. And that's what we're already seeing. Like Houston should tonight, they should just dare the Kings to beat them from three. Like, go ahead and shoot 45 threes. If you're going to shoot 45 threes, but you're shooting, 32%, so you might hit like 12. Like, okay, we'll beat you if you go 12 for 45 from three. Like, I think that they have to start getting the easy baskets again. And there are no easy baskets. Even like the first couple of games of the season, we saw those like sneaky little back cuts by Sasha and by Harrison Barnes. Like, where is all that stuff? Because it's not there. And part of that's because your 3-point shooters aren't hitting, so they're just clogging the lane and taking away the passing lanes, not just the dribbling lanes, but for a guy like Sabonis, they're taking away the passing lanes, and they're just making life really difficult. So, I don't think the league is caught up to the Kings. I think the Kings aren't playing well. And if they start playing well, if the offense starts clicking and they start getting in a rhythm, they'll be just fine.
James Harden will make his debut for the Los Angeles Clippers at Madison Square Garden coming up in about 40 minutes. Bradley Beal might debut on Wednesday, and he'll likely debut with Devin Booker out because Devin Booker has suffered a calf strain.
It's getting crazy. It's getting crazy over there. Like, just be careful, Devin. Just be careful.
Grizzlies got their first win last night. Mavericks are 5-1. Luka's numbers are ridiculous.
Mavericks are losing tonight, though.
Who they got tonight?
Orlando in Orlando.
Oh, your
Second
Magic.
game of a back-to-back.
Your Orlando Magic.
Real quick, speaking of back-to-back, did you see the stat that Will Z sent us?
I didn't.
Last season, the Kings had 7 mini-series, 2 games in the same place and all this other stuff. Record in the first game was 4-3. Record in the second game, 7-0.
Wow.
Will they stay undefeated tonight?
I like that. I like that.
That's a good stat.
Yeah.
That's a good stat. It's also a good stat that Devin Booker's already pushing the envelope on games missed in order to make the All-NBA team.
That's not true.
Yeah, that was harsh. That was harsh.
That was harsh, James.
Hey, man, he's down to 10. He can only miss 10 more games. And the same thing with Bradley Beal. I think he's at 9. He can only miss 9.
Brad, you might as well.
And look, Devin's not playing the next game.
Right. Yeah, he's not.
So by the time he recovers from this calf strain, he may be down to 5 games left.
Well, that's what Trey's dealing with, right?
Yeah, Trey been out for 3 weeks.
But we're not worried about Trey's All-NBA eligibility.
Well, speak for yourself, James.
I dig me some Trey Lyles. Like he's my dude.
What'd you guys think about the courts?
I thought it was great. Nothing changed when I was watching it. Actually,
it was really intense when I was watching it. I was like, oh, that looks different on TV.
You know what happens, to me at least? It made the arena feel like more packed.
Huh.
I was watching that Denver game. I was like, I feel like I've never seen this many people at a Nuggets game. Like they're on top of the floor. Like, this is crazy.
I feel like it looked like OKC had theater lighting. It looked different. Like it was a completely different feel.
I'm wondering if it is a lighting issue that you're seeing. And hey, the games were great. Like the games were phenomenal. Like this weekend of football, we all were waiting for like that Seattle Ravens game. And then the whole morning was just one great game after another by teams that you didn't care about at all.
The Vikings and the Texans.
Like, this is incredible. All of them were like, this is so much fun. What a great morning of football. But I think that might be it.
Played harder because of the in-season tournament. I thought they just
played, but I don't remember who it was who said, you could feel like something was going on, like something made this bigger. We didn't know what. The courts were different. The jerseys were different. I don't remember who said that, but I was like, oh, that's pretty funny. It was like, we just knew it felt like a big deal.
Yeah.
And we didn't talk about it. We could save it for tomorrow. Did you see Tyrese's idea?
Yeah, I did.
I low-key kind of like it. Like it could not matter, but I did kind of like it.
We could talk about it.
We'll save that for tomorrow.
I think they should do World Series of Poker where they just every game there's stacks of 500,000 and they put it on a table at the end of the court or at half court. Like that's what you're playing for. But 500 times 15 guys plus the coaching, so a big couple of million sitting there, and you're like, all right,
I don't think that does anything for the viewer.
It's for the players. The players.
Well, maybe it does. Well, some of them would just take the cash and go. Never mind.
James Harden's back tonight.
James Harden debuting at the Garden coming up in 35
make it out
minutes.
of Vegas with their money.
Probably not. In Vegas, make sure you don't make it out of there with their money. Make sure you're tapped into the Insiders beginning tomorrow morning at 10 a.m. Hopefully, we're talking about a Kings victory